Number 10. Lost Island of Gold. The remains of a fabled and lost island of gold have been discovered at the bottom of the Musi River in Indonesia. According to local legends, the island of gold was once home to man-eating snakes, fiery volcanoes, and talking parrots. Divers who went to the bottom of the muddy river to explore hauled up hundreds of ancient relics, from temple bells to coins, tools to statues. They even found treasures such as golden sword hilts, rings of gold and ruby, and flutes shaped like peacocks. The amount of treasure discovered at the bottom of the river is honestly boggling, and it all points to one thing. Scientists have, without a doubt, discovered the lost city of Srivijaya. Srivijaya, or the Island of Gold, was a port city and an important stop along the trade route between east and west. It controlled all trade flowing up or down the river from the middle of the 600s all the way to 1025. It was the Chola dynasty of India that finally ruined the city's power by becoming a bigger trading center. The last prince of Srivijaya, Parameswara, tried to regain control in the 1390s but was defeated by the Kingdom of Java. After that, the Island of Gold devolved into a hideout for Chinese pirates. In modern times, the island is completely gone underwater. All the treasure and relics have fallen into the river, lost until archaeologists finally went down and started digging stuff up in 2011. Number 9. Ancient Shipwreck. While cleaning an anchor chain on the coast of Antigua, commercial diver Maurice Belgrave made the most astonishing discovery of his life. He was underwater, scrubbing the anchor chain, when he came across a naval vessel hidden in the mud. As it turned out, it had been down there, submerged near the Antigua Naval Dockyard for 250 years. The wooden ship is about 130 feet long, which is actually quite large compared to most of the wrecks found around the Caribbean island. Historians believe it could be the 1762 French merchant ship called the Beaumont. After the French East India Company collapsed, it became a warship in the French Navy until 1772. The ship was then used in the American Revolutionary War under the name of the Leon. It was captured in 1778 while supporting the 13 colonies as the Americans fought for independence. But after it was captured and taken back to the Antigua harbor, it was too damaged to be of use to anyone. At some point, it sank right there in the harbor and was long forgotten. Number 8. The Mystery Monster. In 2017, researchers with an unidentified oil and gas company discovered a giant skeleton at the bottom of the ocean, nearly 3,000 feet deep. The researchers were using a remotely operated vehicle to survey the area when they stumbled upon the set of bones, and they were unlike anything they had ever seen before. There was what appeared to be a giant spinal column sitting in the muck. Naturally curious, the individual controlling the remotely operated vehicle tried to pick up a piece of the skeleton with the vehicle's mechanical claw. But the second that the claw touched the bone, it literally disintegrated into dust. It was impossible to take a sample back to the surface to see what kind of creature the skeleton belonged to. But here's where things get freaky. The skeleton, at least the part that the researchers were able to see with their underwater camera, appeared to be 98 feet long. That's longer than any other marine animal. Nobody has a clue what monster the bones could have possibly belonged to. Judging by the length of the skeleton, it could have been some sort of underwater serpent or even an ocean dragon. And even though that's obviously speculation, the truth is probably even stranger. There is simply no animal underwater that we know of that can match up to the skeleton, making it more obvious than ever just how little we know about what lies beneath the waves. Number 7. Sunken Tank. A US Sherman tank from World War II was recently hauled out of the water during a Russian military exercise. The tank had been submerged ever since it was launched back in 1945. The history of the tank goes back to when a convoy of 26 American ships left Scotland and headed towards the Barents Sea. These ships were supposed to be delivering aid to their Soviet allies. The ships made it to Scandinavia and were on their way to a nearby port when a German U-boat snuck up on them and began blasting. The German U-boat destroyed the American ship, which had been loaded with 7,679 tons of cargo. Some of this cargo included huge military tanks. Well, there was nothing much they could do to get them out of the water at the time. The tanks were abandoned. It would be over 70 years later that the Russians finally brought up one of the Sherman tanks from the wreckage of the ship, the Thomas Donaldson. After exploring the wreckage above water, they also discovered a 102mm gun, which is an anti-aircraft machine gun and smaller items like artillery shell casings, and even a few locomotive wheels. Incredible how many details were able to be recovered, especially after so long submerged. Number 6. An alien anomaly. Off the coast of Antarctica, about 100 miles from land, a strange anomaly has been discovered underwater. The anomaly was found thanks to internet sleuths poring over pictures from Google Earth. In satellite images, they managed to spot a strange structure just beneath the surface, something very obviously man-made. The discovery is a series of straight lines, all connected perpendicular to each other. And as you may already know, Mother Nature doesn't really build in straight lines. Sadly, it's hard to say exactly what this anomaly under the water is. It appears to be some kind of huge base. Then again, it could be a lost temple or city left behind by an ancient civilization that once lived on Antarctica. The truth is that we could speculate all day over what the mysterious object under the water is, but there's no way to know for sure unless somebody dives down there and takes pictures. All we have now is a satellite image of a peculiar structure off the Antarctic coasts, and a whole lot of UFO conspiracy theorists claiming it's a secret base left behind by alien visitors. Number 5. The Ghosts of Chuuk Lagoon. Chuuk Lagoon was home to a Japanese naval base during World War II. Because the lagoon provided a natural harbor for the ships and offered natural shelter from attack, it was the perfect place for the Japanese to keep their base. They built airfields on the islands inside the atoll and really tried to secure the area. But in February of 1944, America launched Operation Hailstorm. Over the course of just 2 days, the US Navy attacked and destroyed the Japanese forces at Chuuk Lagoon. The Japanese lost at least 50 ships and well over 250 planes. Where did all those war machines go? They are all still sitting at the bottom of the lagoon, where they've stayed for over 70 years. Most of the planes and ships are covered in corals and sponges, filled with fish and divers instead of soldiers. What was once a disaster for the Japanese Imperial Army is now one of the most popular places in the world for divers to swim with wrecked war vehicles. Would you be brave enough to dive at Chuuk Lagoon to see the hundreds of scattered military vehicles on the bottom of the sea? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. Number 4. Mayan Salt Workers. A team of archaeologists working with Louisiana State University recently excavated some ancient Maya dwellings. These dwellings are directly associated with salt production in a makeshift mine that is now underwater. For a bit of background, the earliest known use of salt in the Maya kingdom was 2,500 years ago. On the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya boiled brine in salt kitchens to create salt that they could trade at markets and use with their food. They were doing this almost 3,000 years ago, which is honestly quite impressive, because producing salt takes quite a bit of scientific knowledge, though clearly the Maya had that in abundance. The archaeologists had been studying a group of submerged salt kitchens in Belize, where the Maya produced their salt. They have discovered clay pots and thatched dwellings preserved in the sediment. In total, they've identified at least 10 salt kitchens that were part of a major complex which the Maya produced salt on an industrial scale. This was a permanent community dedicated to the production of salt, likely for regional trade. Sadly, it's all underwater right now, and so investigating the remains requires a lot of patience and a lot of Tupperware containers. The archaeologists have to bring out hundreds of wood samples from these sunken dwellings and kitchens, each one locked in a plastic box. Number 3. Sinkhole treasures. A discovery in a sinkhole has revealed some startling information. It turns out human beings have been hanging out in Florida for about 14,500 years. The reason this is exciting news is that it totally flips the theory of when humans settled in the Americas on its head. The sinkhole was excavated in the Ocilla River, just south of Tallahassee. Archaeologists brought out of the hole a stone knife, the bones of a mastodon, and fossilized poop. All of these peculiar artifacts point to the plain fact that humans were hunting mastodon in Florida nearly 15 centuries ago. It would suggest the colonization of the Americas was infinitely more complicated than anyone has previously thought. Not only were human beings this far south 1,500 years earlier than previously claimed by scientists, but they seem to have already been dug in. They were already hunting, building tools, and dumping their trash in a huge sinkhole. It was Jessie Halligan who actually dove into the sinkhole 126 times to bring the artifacts back to the surface. She's a scientist with Florida State University. According to Jessie, The hole was definitely made by humans, who had likely used it as a kind of trash can for their unwanted animal remains, mostly bone. Oh yeah, and they used it for their poop. Number 2. Naked shark. In 2019, fishermen in the Mediterranean Sea, very close to Sardinia in Italy, made a shocking discovery. They pulled from the depths of the sea a mutant fish, unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. In a world first, these fishermen had caught a completely naked shark. You might be thinking, aren't sharks naked anyway? Technically, you're right. But in this case, the blackmouth cat shark was born without skin and without any teeth. In the world of sharks, it doesn't get much more naked than that. The real mystery here is that scientists have never seen a naked shark before. They've encountered plenty of cases of albinism in which a shark is completely white because of a genetic skin mutation. But to not have any skin at all is unheard of. And even weirder is the fact that the shark was living a perfectly normal life until the fishermen rudely pulled it out of the ocean. It was 3 years old at its time of death. It even had a belly full of food. For sharks, it apparently doesn't matter if they have teeth or skin or not. They are still top predators. Number 1. Lost City of Microbes. Divers off the Greek island of Zakynthos came across what they thought was the remains of an ancient city submerged underwater. What they found were huge column bases that looked as though they once formed the foundation for temples and other structures. There was a whole lot of excitement in the archaeological community, but all that excitement came to an end when archaeologists went down and realized that the columns were actually made by microbes. It wasn't an underwater city from some lost civilization, but rather geological features made by microbes millions of years ago. The microbes created their little fake city by eating methane and changing the chemical composition of dirt. The reason the columns look the way they do is more of a phenomenon than anything. This particular spot on the ocean floor is very cold because methane is leaking into the water. In the sediments, there are microbes which actually consume the methane for energy. These microbes slowly change the dusty sediments on the bottom of the seafloor until they turned into hard rock called dolomite. It took a few million years for the process to complete, and it has been finished for about 2.6 million years now. The columns have been around for quite some time. They just don't actually have anything to do with humans or an ancient civilization. What's your favorite underwater mystery? Let me know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching the video. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and be sure to watch many more.